Welcome back to another episode of Tactics, the series where we dive deep into the very specific and tactical strategies we use to help brands produce predictable, profitable growth. And today, the professor, Richard, my co-host from the podcast, and also a longtime creative strategist at CTC. He's led our marketing team. He's taught advertising courses. He's a deeply knowledgeable individual about all things e-commerce, is going to dive in for you on how to use subscription to grow your e-commerce business. This video is going to discuss implementing subscription models for DTC businesses to achieve predictable, profitable growth, emphasizing the importance of CLTV in this process. The video will also explore optimizing subscription products through churn analysis and addressing churn causes and ensuring a seamless subscription user experience. So full of practical tips, rich with details and specifics. We're even going to go through a case study of a brand in detail, how they added subscription to what was not an obvious subscription business to make a huge difference on LTV. And as with all the videos in this series, it's brought to you by our partners at Recharge and OmniSend, two partners we have hand-selected for a reason, and I'll be back in the middle of the episode to tell you why. But for now, enjoy Richard talking about subscription businesses and how they can impact LTV.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Tactics here. Today what we're talking about is implementing subscription models for your D2C business. So why do we want to talk about that today? Well, I'll start by directing you to our website. So if you were to go to Common Thread Collective's website, you go to our homepage and then click the growth strategy selection in one of the drop downs. This is the first thing that you'd see. This sentence: build your predictable, profitable growth plan. And if maybe you've been on a sales call with us or you've interacted with our content in any way, really, you're probably sick and tired of hearing this phrase, predictable, profitable growth. But there's a reason that we center so much of our messaging around this, because in this day and age, in this economic context, predictability and profitability are key to survival, which is why we emphasize it so much. And the path to predictable growth is LTV. So in order to explain that, I'm going to do it by way of a story. And this is a story that if you've been following Common Thread Collective for a while, you will have definitely heard before. But I'm going to tell it again because it's it's a great story, and it's illustrative of why this is so critical for your business. This is May of 2019. We had done basically 12K in total sales for the entire month. And we were in a position where we basically thought it was time to shut the business down. Our ROAS was awful. This is 1.82. Now you'll see those of us coming at this from a 2024 perspective may not think 1.82 is so bad. But at the time, our ROAS was terrible. We weren't first order profitable. Essentially, the business just wasn't making any sense. But what we discovered using our proprietary tool, Statless, was that Bamboo Earth's LTV was actually great. So within 60 days, so we call this our cash multiplier, which is LTV restricted to a very specific payback window. What we noticed is that people were buying the product and they were loving it and they were coming back for more, but we just were not putting into place the mechanics that we needed to actually emphasize that or take advantage of it. It was just something that was happening. And so after looking at that, we decided to lean into growing LTV more and more. And in this case, in some products cases, this is a breakdown by SKU. Some SKUs were almost 60% in terms of their LTV. So we leaned into building that LTV. And this is the same month. This is May, 2 years later, May of 2021. Our ROAS was now 1.56, so it was worse. But our total sales were almost $500,000 for that same month.
Quick time out from your tactics episode for me to tell you about our partner, Recharge. In my life, I have 3 little kids and I'm trying to run a business. And one of the only ways I can do that is by having habits and routines. And 2 of those that help my family a ton are, 1, our Crunch Labs box subscription for all of our kids. They wait by the door. They can't wait to get it. They get 3 hours of playtime. My wife and I get some great conversation. It's a critical part of making our life work. The second is my Create Wellness gummy creatine subscription, 40 years old, trying to stay in shape, trying to maintain a healthy life amidst all the chaos. And that's a critical part. And both of these are powered by Recharge. Recharge has been the best subscription app in the Shopify ecosystem for a long time. They power some of the best brands in the world, like Crunch Labs and Create Wellness, alongside Curology and Cometeer and Billy and Bloom and Vital Proteins, and tons of other brands that you care about. And if there's any tactic that you as a business should consider for driving improved LTV, compounding the values of your customers, expanding margin over time, it's subscription. There's really no great other way to do it more effectively. Now, not every product is perfect for that, but if you are, Recharge is the app for you. We're grateful for them for sponsoring this tactics episode and helping to bring so much value to you all. Check them out, getrecharged.com.
And what that means is that because our LTV was growing and because we were taking advantage of the fact that our LTV was growing, we were able to actually spend more money at lower efficiency to acquire more customers. This is the same month 5 years later, right? May of this year, our ROAS is now 1.18, which is of course much worse, but our total sales are $750,000 roughly, right? So you can see the relationship there. The more our LTV grew and the more we focused on growing our LTV, the lower our acquisition dollars, or rather the lower our acquisition efficiency could be, which allows us to acquire more customers and grow and grow and grow and grow, right? So boosting LTV is not just a matter of boosting revenue, it's boosting the ability to actually acquire customers on the other end. So that's, in a nutshell, why LTV is so critically important. So of course, then the question is, how do you make this happen? And so I'm going to quote our fearless leader, Taylor Holiday here. The greater your LTV, the faster you have potential to grow because your revenue compounds for every new customer that you acquire very quickly. The fastest growing brands in the world, usually on the basis of subscription, grow LTV quickly, meaning it increases rapidly from the time of new customer acquisition and it increases in volume over time.
Quick break from this episode of Tactics to tell you about OmniSend. OmniSend is the top-rated email and SMS marketing platform for online merchants. With OmniSend, setting up e-commerce automations is so simple, you'll have them up and running before you finish your morning coffee. Plus, you can segment your customers based on their shopping habits and even dive into SMS or push notifications all from one seamless dashboard. OmniSend isn't just another marketing tool. It's the secret weapon behind over 100,000 successful e-commerce brands. Whether it's crafting eye-catching emails or sending out timely texts, OmniSend helps you connect with your customers like never before. Don't wait. Your best campaigns are just a click away. Go to omnisend.com and start today.
So the idea here is that to be a fast-growing brand, the most valuable tool in your arsenal is growing LTV. And the most valuable way to grow LTV quickly is subscription. So that's why we want to talk about this today. Building a foundation of predictable, profitable growth is reliant on LTV. And the best way to build LTV is via a subscription model, if you can. Maybe a way to put it into a nutshell a little bit further is in answer to the question, why subscriptions? I would say that revenue gets easier to predict and therefore becomes less volatile. And that is priceless in the current economic environment, particularly for DTC brands. Okay. So how do we do this? Well, it all starts with the product and a characteristic of a product that I'm going to call subscribability. This is a word I've just made up, but I think it's a good one to describe what we're talking about here. A successful subscription model starts with subscribable products. A successful subscription model starts with subscribable products. Say that 10 times fast. And I think why that's important to highlight is that if a product doesn't naturally lend itself to being subscribed to, you're not going to be able to make a subscription model work. And therefore, you won't be able to make a high LTV play work. Okay. And an important way to think about this is that subscribability, as I've framed it, is a genetic attribute of a product, right? It's built into its DNA and there's not much that you can do to change it. And that's not meant to be discouraging in any way, because there are actually ways that you can still work within this framework if your product is not fundamentally subscribable. But I just think it's an important thing to note that the product itself is where everything begins. So let's talk about subscribability then as a spectrum from subscribable to not subscribable. And I will say it's not necessarily a spectrum per se. Generally speaking, it's more of a binary. Things are either subscribable or they're not, but there's maybe a little bit of nuance to that. But at its core, things are either subscribable or not. So for instance, coffee is highly subscribable, right? It's highly consumable and it tends to be consumed very quickly. I'll say for me, I tend to go through one of these bags of coffee in like 5 or 6 days, maybe, which means that I need to continually have it going on like a week-long subscription model, which a lot of these brands do have, in order to continue to have the amount of coffee that I would like to have. So that's one of the most subscribable types of products that you can have. On the other end of the spectrum is furniture. Furniture is not subscribable. You buy a couch, you expect to have the couch for years, hopefully, before you buy another one. All that to say, the point is that if you run a furniture business, you're not going to have a high LTV and you're not going to be able to build a subscription service around furniture, at least not that I know of. If you have some idea about that, I'd like to hear it. Hey, folks, thanks for listening to this preview episode. To hear the episode in full, check out Admission at youradmission.co. That's YOURADMISSION.co.